We're here at Inishowen Carnival, not far from Malin Head, the most northerly point in Ireland. For the last 25 years, Inishowen Carnival have been creating pageants for the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Dublin. But this year, for the second year running, the parade has been cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the group have instead been asked to help out with ideas for the St. Patrick's Festival Parade from Home project. Here in this shed down a quiet country lane near Malin town, a team of artists work year-round, making a variety of fabulous large props and costumes. We're going to take a look at where they work, how they make things, and show you a few ideas of things to make for your parade from home. Is the lead artist and organiser for the Inishowen Carnival. He's responsible for parade designs as well as making props and costumes. He also has to make sure that the other artists have the resources and materials they need to get the job done on time.
So this is the Inishowen Carnival shed. It's here where we make all our large props and where everything from past years gets stored. So you'll see quite a lot of strange things around here. Usually on St. Patrick's Day we bring a number of large props and over 100 costume performers to Dublin. Performers come from local schools and dance groups, and they spend weeks before the parade getting everything ready for the big day. The artists usually start work just after Christmas and spend a solid 2 months at least building the props for the parade. This year's been a bit different. We've continued making things when we can, keeping ourselves busy and looking forward to future projects. And we're delighted to be part of the St. Patrick's Festival Parade from Home.
Flags are a great way to make a big visual impact. The perfect thing for our parade from home. Kevin's going to show us some easy techniques to make some simple St. Patrick's Day flags.
So when you're making flags, the main thing is to try and find some lightweight material. Old colourful bed sheets might work, maybe some old shirt material.
Or old pillowcases.
That could work. We're actually going to use just paper because it's nice and light and will blow around in the wind. It won't be so great in the rain, but it should work perfectly for the parade at home. You can do this a couple of different ways. You've made that spiral stencil there, which you can use a sponge and paint with. And I am going to use this print out of a design, and I'm actually going to draw over it with a pen to leave an imprint, and then I'm going to be able to just actually draw on the paper itself. Just following the imprint that I've left with the pen and drawing around the outside so I can colour it in. So there we have two designs, one with paint and stencil and one that's just drawn on. I am going to need to draw over the back of mine with pen. And you're probably going to need to wait until yours is dry, and so before you can do the other side. And we're actually going to use these designs later when it comes to making the hats as well, so that we've got both the Celtic design going through the costume, and we're also going to use the colour as well. So it's always a good idea to maybe have the same colours running through the flags and the costumes and any of the other props. It ties everything together and makes a much bigger impact. So all we have to do now is we're going to use this garden cane and we're going to attach that to one side of the flag using sellotape. So that's about as simple a flag as you can make for your parade at home.
Thanks, Kevin. We have the first element for our parade from home. Now we're going to go over to costume maker Blaise Harvey, and she's going to show us how to make our very own parade costume.
Okay, we're going to make an easy tunic top today, like this. So, we're going to use about 2 meters of stretchy fabric. Has to be stretchy, otherwise you won't be able to get it over your head. Anything colourful and fun and stretchy. And you're going to fold it in half and try to line up your edges. Just a little bit of time spent on this makes the next stages easier. Okay, so this tunic is made in 3 pieces. The torso is the same back and front, so that's very easy. You just cut 1 on the double. And then the 2 sleeves are exactly the same. So again, you cut 1 on the double. The collar is single, but you might as well cut 2. So I will be drawing around my pattern pieces with a permanent marker. If you're going to do this, you might want to just do a little test in a corner to make sure that you haven't bought the kind of fabric where ink will go ooh in a sort of a spider web effect, because then it will creep into your pattern pieces. If you have tailor's chalk, that would be better, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing because I'm using permanent marker. So you just draw around the edges of all your pieces. You don't have to be too careful with this. It's a very forgiving kind of a project. This notch here is for the middle, and it's going to line up with the middle of the collar. This notch here is for the middle, and it's going to line up with the join in the shoulders. That's the only technical thing you have to really remember with this part. And now we cut it out carefully, both layers together. This edge here that I'm cutting is going to be left raw, so try and do it in as smooth and straight a line as you can, with none of your marker creeping into it. Okay, so I have an industrial machine. Don't be scared of that. It's just what's here. You could do this with any small, normal, domestic sewing machine. You could do it by hand, but it would be kind of time consuming and it won't be as strong as if you use a machine, so a machine is better. The way that I put them together, I start first with the collar. Now this fabric is just plain orange, but if you have a fabric that has a right side and a wrong side, like if there's a pattern or if there's just a side that is slightly shinier or nicer you just prefer, then you want to make sure that that is on the inside for all of your sewing. So what we will do is we're just going to close the collar first. I allow a seam allowance of about 1 centimetre, but it's really, you don't have to be too exact with this, it's very forgiving. I'm going to sew that closed. Then I will move on to my main body of the tunic. And again, making sure that it's right side to right side. I'm just going to sew the 2 shoulders together. So normal sewing machine thread is fine for this. You don't need to use stretchy or anything like that, it will be fine. I've gone for the closest colour of orange that I could find, but it won't really be important because it will be completely on the inside. Okay, to add the sleeve, open it out so that you're looking at the right side of the fabric. Take your sleeve and put it right side down. Then it doesn't matter which side you start from, line up the point of the sleeve with the point of the tunic. This is the trickiest bit of sewing because you have to work one shape into another shape. So you're going to just walk this along as you're sewing. see how you get on. If it doesn't work out very well, you can unpick it and try it again. Okay, now this is where we are so far. We have a bit of a ghosty costume. It's almost ready, but we have to join the sides, obviously. So what you do is you're going to sew from the very top of the sleeves to the very bottom of the hem, and that will close it up and make it into something a bit more like clothes. We're going to attach the collar next. I've moved over to using a domestic sewing machine because there really is no difference, and I just wanted to show that for you. So you've already joined the collar to be a tube, and now you're going to fold that in half, take the join in that and line it up with one of those notches that we cut, and you're going to start sewing from there. And what you want is to try and get the collar to fit as perfectly as you can inside the neck hole. So as we've talked about before, you might have to do some stretching here and there to make that happen. But start sewing from this point and then just check every so often to see how well the collar is going to fit into the space. A simple tunic. And now that you've mastered these skills, you can use the same pattern and the same process to make slightly different ones. You can make it longer so that it's a full dress, or you could use the same sleeves but make them longer and then fold up the fabric to make little pleats for yourself. Once you're comfortable with it, you can do all sorts of stuff with the same pattern. Bye!
Thanks, Blaze. Don't worry if you don't have a sewing machine at home. You can make an effective costume by getting a colourful t-shirt and matching it with a pair of trousers or leggings. With our bright and brilliant costume, that's another part of our parade from home ready to go. Now we're going to take a look at some of the things that go on here at the Inishowen Carnival. Last year, Inishowen Carnival took a step into the future when they bought a CNC machine, which is basically just a big wood-cutting robot to you and me. During lockdown, Kevin has been working on lots of designs for Celtic lanterns. Let's take a look at what goes into putting them together.
Start the lanterns by drawing some Celtic designs on the computer, and then I have cut a few out of some test materials and play around with a few ideas and see what different sort of shapes of lanterns that I want to do. So first we cut out the designs on the CNC machine. And then we bevel the edges using a table saw, and we stick them together with glue and a nail gun. In the final part of the process, we put a white plastic sheet inside for the light to shine through. Great for nighttime events.
Of course, it's not just high-tech machinery doing all the hard work here at Inishowen Carnival. Eddie has been making large props for many years. Here he is starting out carving a massive dragon's head. The dragon design is marked out on large blocks. The profile is cut out on each block before being glued together. Once this rough shape is assembled, the detailed carving can begin. process could easily take another few weeks, so unfortunately we won't get to see it finished just yet. This large puppet head was made using a similar method. When you're pushing a giant prop through the streets of Dublin, it's nice when it's lightweight. And you don't get much more lightweight than these inflatables. Let's see how they're made. Kevin rolls out the fabric on the floor and marks out the design. Once these are cut out, Blaise sews all the pieces together. The final prop is inflated using a small fan attached to a wooden trolley. Now the inflatable is ready to go. Sometimes they are fitted with lights, perfect for nighttime events. That was all really interesting, but now it's time to get back to our parade from home. Kevin is going to show us how to make some hats for our costumes.
So these are some simple hats that we've made for previous years' carnival parades. They're just simple, it's colourful foam that we have, and we cut out some simple shapes, and we've decorated these ones with some sparkly fabric and some Celtic patterns, and we're actually going to do a version of these ones to show the people for their parade at home. And then these are some slightly more complicated designs, but it's the same idea. So it's basically just sort of colourful foam, and on the back of these we put a strip of fabric, and that is what ties around the head to keep it on the head. So they're very, very simple, flat shapes, and then they're tied to the head for a simple hat. And you can't really get much simpler than those.
People at home are unlikely to have this foam though.
Probably not. So we're actually going to use cardboard from cereal packets, which hopefully everybody should have, and we're going to use paint just to add the colour. So we'll clear these all away, grab some cereal packets and some art materials, and we'll get ready to make the hats. Right, so I think we've got everything we need. We've got some paint, some glue, some scissors here, paint brushes, a couple of yogurt pots in case we need to put some paint in those as well. Usually when we're making hats, we play around with the design, usually in cardboard, and then when we're happy with the final design, we cut out a template which we can then use and make hundreds of these if we have, depending on how many people we have in the parade. And what I've done for the parade at home is that I have drawn out some designs that fit on an A4 sheet of paper, and people at home can print these out and they can be stuck onto the cereal boxes, and then you can cut around the shape, and that will give you the basic shape of the hat to use.
Great, so let's get started.
Okay. Oh, and a good idea is to put it on to the side that has, not the white side, but the side that has the design on it, the picture on it, and that way you're covering that up with paper. So that actually just makes it easier later on, and cut around it.
Do people at home have to use the templates?
No, you can play around with any ideas you want. These are just to give a basic idea of maybe the size and shape. These were drawn out so these fit so that this spike just sort of comes down just on the nose. So it might just give you a bit of an idea for what size it needs to be. These are particularly good for smaller children. But you can play about with maybe spirals at the top, depending on the size of cardboard that you have. Just play about with the ideas, play about with the shapes, and see what you like.
So we've cut out our shapes. What's next?
Well, if you wanted to, you could just paint these now and actually paint the design on the front. But we're going to do something a wee bit more like our foam hats, and we're going to take some thicker cardboard and cut out these simple shapes here, and that sort of builds up a bit of a three-dimensional aspect to the hats, just to add something a wee bit different. So there's some thicker cardboard, and I've also drawn out these simple shapes. You could just do these by hand, but this is just, again, so people could print these out at home and stick them on in the same way that we did the hats. Just makes things a wee bit easier. So the plan now is to choose two colours, one for the hat shape and one for the decoration. And it might be an idea to tie those in with the colour of your flag as well, and that just ties them in.
This part can be quite messy, so if you're at home, you might want to put newspaper down on the table so that you don't get your tables covered in paint.
Yeah, it helps that these tables in the carnival have been used for lots of different activities, so we don't worry so much about getting, as you can see, we don't worry about getting so much paint on.
So while we're waiting for these to dry, what are we going to do now?
Well, when these dry, you could just paint these spiral patterns on, but we're going to cut out our patterns out of some shiny gold and silver foil. So for the decorations at the front, we're going to use this gold and silver foil that we had lying around from a previous project. Not everybody at home is going to have some of this, but maybe they might have something else left over from Christmas or birthday wrapping papers that would do just as well. And I have actually cut some templates out to make this easier. We're going to draw around, but you could just draw on freehand with these as well, and that would work too. For this, it's going to be easier to draw it on the back, so we'll turn it over to that side and draw the pattern on there. Patterns ready, and we just have to cut those out. So everything's dry now. We've each got our three pieces, and we just have to stick them together. I have some fabric that Blaze used for the costume, and we'll cut a strip off that and staple it onto the hats. So we'll lay the fabric out on the table, and you just need to center the hat and staple it on. Tie simply onto your head. There we go, and one carnival hat ready to go. Another idea is you could use the same method that we used for the decorations on the hats, and you could turn these into simple brooches or necklaces. You could put a safety pin on the back to make a brooch, tie a colourful string on it as a necklace, and that would just be another accessory for your costume.
I hope we've given you lots of great ideas for your parade from home. From me and everyone here at the Inishowen Carnival, have a great St. Patrick's Day.